I think that is a lot of where the meditation part comes in, because what meditation does is it helps you get in touch with, well, helps you quiet all the voices that are going on around you. Mm-hmm. And it helps you tap into that inner voice, that inner knowing, that inner truth that only you can hear. And it's telling you what is right for you. And so allowing yourself that space, that to get in there and the ability to listen, to hear it, because it's, intuition is always coming through, but whether you can hear it or not is a different story.
Right. Hello, you are listening to the Late Bloomer Living podcast, where we are reimagining and redefining what it means to be in midlife, where we are gathering energy, momentum, and excitement for our next chapter via candid conversations with other midlifers about their own pivots, pitfalls, and triumphs. I'm Yvonne Marchese, your host, and I'm so happy you're here. This week's guest was 48 and in the process of closing her 11-year-old baking company when her mom passed away suddenly. Mourning the loss of both had her questioning everything. After 22 years of marriage and life, she was wondering where the girl she used to be had gone. Her life was fine, but she felt stuck and lost. And she ended up deciding that fine was definitely not good enough. Lori Saitz is the CEO of Zen Rabbit and host of the podcast Fine is a Four-Letter Word. She's an award-winning writer, speaker, and broadcaster, and a nationally recognized expert in using gratitude and meditation as shortcuts to success. And I can't wait for you to hear her story. But before we do, I want to take a moment to officially invite you to Midlife Uprising. It's a free online event that I'm hosting from May 11th to May 13th for women who are ready to make waves instead of fading away as they age. I think that's you. I'm bringing together more than 30 speakers to offer strategies, tips, and advice to help you get past feeling stuck so you can step into your next chapter with some purpose and excitement. There will also be opportunities to connect with other attendees and the speakers in the community as part of the event. For now, all you need to do is save the dates. That's May 11th to May 13th. And I'll be posting more information soon on how you can sign up, so just keep checking in here or be sure to sign up for my email list and follow me on Instagram for more details as we get closer. Do it. Carve out a little bit of time in your busy schedule to explore what's next in your life. I'm so excited. Oh, and by the way, Lori Saitz just happens to be one of the Midlife Uprising experts, so you get a little sneak peek today. Okie dokie, without further ado, here's Lori Saitz. Let's go. Hey, Lori, thank you so much for being with me today.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
I am super excited. I found you in Clubhouse and started noticing you there and Instagram. And, we know each other through Jack Perez of Cool Life. And,
right.
So cool. I love the meditations that you contribute there. And I'm fascinated with what you're doing and how you got to what you're doing at this point in your life.
What was the journey?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. What was the journey?
Okay. So I have a background in marketing and corporate communications and some broadcasting. Because originally when I graduated college, I wanted to sit in Katie Couric's chair. And
really?
Yes.
Cool.
But I didn't really want to take the path that she took to get there. And that was at the time, the only path was through like broadcast news, like being an on the street reporter to start with. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't appealing to me. So I went into marketing, corporate communications, and loved it. I mean, everything happens for a reason, and you're on the right path. Like there's Peter Crone, who's known as the mind architect. And he has a quote that it's what happened and couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't.
Ooh, Ooh, that's
So
good.
you have to think about that for a second. But yes, if it was meant to happen some other way, then it would have happened that way, and it didn't. So this is the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So so I worked in marketing and corporate communications for years. Started my first business when it was 2003. It was called the Zen Rabbit Baking Company. And I was making and marketing a product called the Gratitude Cookie, which was based on a family recipe. And because of my marketing background, I wasn't looking to be the next Mrs. Fields. I positioned this as a tool for businesses to say thank you to their clients and to people who sent them referrals.
So smart.
And so I ran that business for 11 years, couldn't quite scale it the way I wanted to, and I ended up shutting it down. And then I was teaching networking strategies for a while, specifically for people who felt intimidated walking into a room full of people where you don't know anybody. Because
Oh my gosh, and who doesn't? Who doesn't feel intimidated walking into that room?
You'd be surprised. Some people are very outgoing and they don't care. Like, that them at all.
That is just my idea of like one of the circles of hell. I will just say.
Well, see, I could have made it easier for you. And with that pandemic and nobody was going anywhere, and I had some time to reconsider, what am I doing? Like a lot of us.
Yeah.
Where am I going? What am I doing? What do I want to be doing in this next season of life? And my creativity and intuition were really heightened during this time when we couldn't go anywhere or do anything really.
Yeah.
And somebody invited me to come do a presentation virtually about gratitude, like somebody who knew me from that other world, from my first business. And so that kind of pulled me back into this whole world of talking about gratitude. And that's how I had created a meditation actually for my networking clients on 5 minutes to help you feel grounded and calm before you walk into a networking event.
There you go. So this is fascinating. So I wondered where does the name Zen Rabbit come from? Such a cool name.
Thanks for asking that question. So it was because of the marketing, like nobody ever forgets the name Zen Rabbit.
Right.
But when you really dig into it, the real truth is that I had a stuffed rabbit when I was a baby that my mom put in the crib. Aww. And she quickly figured out that she could take all the other animals out, but the rabbit had to be in the crib or I wasn't sleeping. And as I got older, there's a picture of me at 2 years old. I rubbed her ears for comfort. You know how babies do, like blankets or whatever. She was essentially my Zen rabbit. I didn't call her that at the time, but that's what she was.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
And so when I started making these cookies for people, they would eat them and be like, oh my gosh, this is so good. This reminds me of baking at my grandma's house. And it would bring them back to this Zen blissful place.
Yeah.
And so that's how it kind of all tied together.
So cool. So cool. So when did you get into meditation?
My mom actually took my brother and me to a meditation course when I was 10.
Good for
and
her.
Yes, it was an amazing and very progressive thing, I think, for her to, to have found this and then introduce it to us. So I learned how to meditate when I was 10, but as I got into my teen years, I don't need that. And I didn't use it for like another 35 years, certainly not consistently. Once in a while, I would go back to it and do it for a week and then get away from it. But I knew that if I had practiced meditation, I knew practicing meditation would make my life better, would make it easier, more smooth. Just, there's so many benefits to meditation. I knew that.
Changed doing it regularly has completely changed my life. Yeah. I used to dabble and do, little,
Right. Right. Yeah. And so, it's one of those things you look back and you're like, well, why weren't you doing it consistently?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just wasn't the right
meant
time,
to be,
I guess. Right. Right. Exactly. So after my mom passed away, actually, when I shut down Zen Rabbit Baking Company, I had decided to shut it down. And then my mom was diagnosed with an acute form of leukemia. And she passed away like 6 weeks later. And so I
I'm
was
sorry.
mourning the death of my mom and my business at the same time.
Wow.
And that's about when I came back to meditation. And eventually, a couple years later, got maybe a year or two later, really consistent with it. And now I'm at the point where I start every single day with a meditation. It's almost like, you know how it feels to leave the house without brushing your teeth? You're like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. That's how it feels now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. 48 was kind of when the rubber hit the road for me too, and I realized I needed to change some of my thought patterns, and I was really looking at how am I going to do that after all this time, you know? And so I committed to, I just said, okay, well, let's try this for 30 days. I started getting up early before my family so that I could have the time that was dedicated to quiet before all this, before the shitstorm hit, you know, and all the demands started. And it made a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Right. And so then you start, when you get into it and you're consistent about it, you start going, well, why isn't everybody doing this? What's wrong with everybody else? Like, can't they see how amazing this is? But you're like, oh yeah, but I didn't do it for the past 30 years either. So.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So, okay. So you closed down your business, your mom passed away, and you took that as the time to get back to that. And what happened from there? What was the next leg of that journey for you?
Then I left my marriage. So
wow.
Not right after. It took me another 4 years because his mom passed away in there also. And we were leaning on each other a lot for, you know, emotional support. That's like it's hard for people to understand. And I think maybe a lot of your listeners have probably been to this place where their moms have passed away. But until that happens to you, you have no concept of how impactful it is. So we were, and I mean, we had been together for almost 30 years. So most of my adult life. Wow. And this is the whole thing of going back to everything was fine. It was fine. There was nothing horribly wrong. It was fine. It wasn't great. And so all of those things happening, my business, my mom, do I want to live the next 20 years the same way I lived the last 20? That was the question. And what will I do differently?
It's a big question.
Yes.
That's a big question. And it's hard to leave a marriage when it's fine.
Right. It's hard to leave a marriage or any situation.
Any situation, right? Yeah. Yeah, right on. It is really hard to leave any situation when it's fine. I got married too young, and that first marriage was fine. But yeah, I realized that I needed something else, and without going into too much detail, and it was really hard. It was really hard because I think he's a great person to this day. Yes. You know, there's still a part, you know, love him. Yes. We shouldn't have been married, you know, but it's hard to leave something when it's fine. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so
how did you get yourself to decide to make the move?
I think that is a lot of where the meditation part comes in, because what meditation does is it helps you get in touch with, helps you quiet all the voices that are going on around you. And it helps you tap into that inner voice, that inner knowing, that inner truth that only you can hear. And it's telling you what is right for you. And so allowing yourself that space, that to get in there and the ability to listen, to hear it, because it's, you know, intuition is always coming through, but whether you can hear it or not is a different story.
Right.
And so that was a key piece of it. Like, okay, this relationship is not serving either one of us, and we both knew it. I don't think he would have ever initiated, though. So it was up to me to do it. And that's part of the reason why my one of my programs is called Fuck Being Fine, because you reach this point where you're just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, this isn't what I want, and I have to do something different. And you just have to say, fuck being fine. And so that's why I named it that.
Yeah, I totally get it. And it's hard to, I imagine that one of the, tell me if I'm wrong here in this guess, but I imagine that part of what would keep you from making that move or honoring that instinct is the feeling of, oh, I'm being selfish. Do you think that holds people back? Did that hold you back at all? Was that something that came up?
I do think that is something that could hold people back. And interestingly enough, I think it was the opposite that pushed me to finally say something and make the move. It was, I felt like it would be selfish to stay because he deserved somebody who could be all in.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it was, even though, and I still worked through a whole bunch of guilt about the whole thing. But ultimately, I think that was what pushed me to finally say, all right, we have to go our separate ways, because this isn't fair to either one of us.
Yeah.
But it's especially not fair to him for me to hold on like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Takes a lot of courage.
Yes. I didn't see that in the beginning. People were always saying, you're so courageous. And I didn't see it. But I do see it now. I see it as an essential part. I mean, that's why, so my program, the Fuck Being Fine, has 3 components, what I call the trilogy for success. The first one is gratitude. The second one is connections. And the third is courage.
Love it. So COVID, the COVID shutdown is what had you rethink what you were doing in your business?
Yes.
Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Is that when did you start your podcast?
It's funny.
May of this year, right?
May of 2021, right?
Right.
So it hasn't even been a full year yet. And it's funny because just yesterday I wrote a LinkedIn post of, where were you at this time last year in your life, in your career, in your journey? Like, looking back at it, was inviting people to look at how far you've come in the past year. And at this point, at this time that we're recording this, I didn't have any idea what my podcast was going to be about. I was going through a podcast course to learn all the, how to operate, all the operations part of it. But so I knew I wanted to do one, but I had no idea what my topic was.
That's so interesting, because for me, starting a podcast came from my own midlife reinvention, and the feeling of having been stuck for so long in my old thought processes and all the stuff that was getting in my way. And finally busting through that made me feel like, oh my gosh, I wonder how many other people are feeling this. Wouldn't it be great to do a podcast? Because I was listening to all kinds of podcasts. I'm a podcast junkie. And I was listening to all of them, and I was like, what about a podcast where I interview people who went through the same type of thing, where they came up against this point in time where it was like, something's got to change, and did, and managed to make that change. So was it because of this Katie Couric thing that you suddenly were like, maybe I want to explore that? And so that was there. And then you were like, okay, what would be the topic?
Yes, exactly. So I did work in radio. I have some background in working in radio stations, but yeah, it was I always felt like, okay, there are thousands of podcasts. What is going to make mine different? And it wasn't so much of like, who wants to hear what I have to say as a way of putting myself down. It wasn't that. It was just, if I'm going to step into this market, how am I going to differentiate? What's going to be different about this, and why is it needed? So that's where I was working on getting it. I don't know, say getting it right, but getting it, where's my
So can I ask you what other topics kind of came up as potentials that you were like, nope.
It wasn't really a matter of, no, I'm not doing that. Although I did have an idea more as a clubhouse room. Actually, I think it was after I started talking about after I had this idea for this podcast, but because I love music. So having worked in state radio stations with all kinds of genres of music, let's have a conversation about the songs that bring back the memories. Like give me a song and then tell me the memory that you have associated with that.
I'm just getting an idea, Laura, because that sounds like so much fun.
So
I've been thinking about doing that too. And
really?
Maybe we should do like a cross-thread episode or something like that to talk about those songs that the songs that transport you. It's like a time machine when you hear it, right? Oh my God, that would be so much fun.
Yeah. So actually what I did with my podcast, I ask every one of my guests at the very end, what's your hype song? Like in baseball, they call it your walk-up song. What's your hype song that you listen to? So I do incorporate an element of music into it, but yeah. I was just going through it, and I was paying attention to the conversations that I was having with friends. And there was a text conversation I had with my cousin who was feeling like, I don't know what my purpose in life is anymore. Her oldest son was graduating college. He didn't need her in the same way anymore. She was questioning, what's my purpose? And conversations with friends, because, so I left my marriage, and then 3 or 4 other friends followed and did the same, like, well, she can do it and she didn't burst into flames. Let me do it too. So
you started a trend.
I did.
You're a trendsetter, Laura.
I have traditionally been a trendsetter, so that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. So these conversations going on of people feeling like from the outside, everything looks amazing in my life, but I'm not happy. So there must be something wrong with me. And so my goal was to go into it to help people understand that, one, there's nothing wrong with you. So it's, your soul is looking for purpose and growth. And 2, you're not alone.
I'm convinced that everybody feels that way,
Yes. Well, that's the interesting thing. So I started this podcast with midlife women in mind as my listeners. And then I started finding out and hearing from men who were listening and really enjoying it, and millennials. And I have a friend who took a cross-country drive with her, I think she's 25-year-old daughter, and they were listening to it, and she was getting value out of it too.
That's amazing. That's so great.
It is a universal theme.
Yes. That's so cool. I was so tickled when my one of my sisters-in-law told me that her son had been listening to my podcast. I was like, my nephew's listening to my podcast. That's awesome.
It is awesome.
I'd never have expected it,
Right? Because in our generation, we were like, yeah, I'm not going to learn anything from anybody older than me. I got this.
Right. Oh my gosh. Wow. So what have you learned about yourself doing this? Like,
what have I, wow.
It's a big question.
I mean, it's just been everything as an entrepreneur to start with. That's the biggest journey of personal development you can possibly go on.
Geez, is it not? Crazy?
Yeah. So I mean, what have I learned? I think one thing I've reinforced, because I've always known this and always acted accordingly, is that my life, my friends are crucial to my survival. I don't know how I would do life without them, and they know it. And the more people I can get into, the more people I can get into my tribe, but I make friends and value friendships so much.
That's amazing. That's a great thing to find out about yourself.
Yeah. And then the other thing I think it is trusting, getting in touch with that intuition. It's like, I've always been intuitive, but then really trusting what is the messages that I'm getting and following them, trusting enough to follow.
Yeah. It's one of the things that this whole, I mean, we share so much in common with this. It's amazing. It's amazing. What is there anything that you wish you had known when you started your podcast, let's say?
Not really, because it's been such an amazing journey. So by the time I finally did launch, I had a very clear picture of what I was creating. I had, in terms of the structure, and that was partly because of the course that I took for learning how to do a podcast. But I knew how I wanted it structured, even though it actually created extra work for me. I'm like, no, but this is how I'm doing it, because this is how I want it. And one of those pieces is I do key takeaways at the end. Like, here are the key takeaways. I record it later, but that's extra work, but that's the piece that people like so much. And so I don't know that I would have done anything differently with the podcast at all. No, I'm super happy, which is really bizarre, because in the past, I've been so much of a perfectionist of wanting to do things or not doing them because I wasn't sure how they would turn out. Being afraid.
So just deciding in the beginning, I don't know how that's going to work out, so I'm just shutting it down now.
Right? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's such a self-protection move. And then in the end, all you've done is kept yourself from doing the thing you wanted to do. And so, boy, we do that to ourselves, don't we?
Yes. And I think the thing about the podcast is, because I'm so excited, like, I love having a microphone. So whether I'm doing a radio interview, a podcast, speaking from a stage, I love that, which is crazy, because I was a super shy child and like, don't put me in front of anybody I don't know. But now I'm like, give me the microphone. But I think the point is, though, that when you're doing something that you feel so passionately about, that really lights you up, then a lot of the fear disappears.
Yep. It's exactly what's happened for me. I have a theater background, so I've always been okay getting on stage. Like, I loved being in a show with a script and costumes and, rehearsals and all the pieces that go together to tell the story, and they all come together, and then you've got the audience, right? But I actually really love the rehearsal process the best, right?
Interesting.
So not scared to go on stage, but I was terrified to speak publicly from my heart, my own thoughts. And doing the podcast, one of the reasons I didn't do it for 2 years, for me, it was imposter syndrome. It was, who am I? But doing the podcast and then getting into Clubhouse, actually, I was like, I want to be a speaker now. So I took a class, and it's like this gradual progression where I've become more and more comfortable speaking my truth. And it's because what I have to say is driving me and getting me past the fear of looking stupid or sounding stupid or whatever else. It's just like, yeah, but I have this thing I need to say.
Yeah. And do you think it also has to do with getting older and finding more confidence in who you are?
Yeah, I think that is part of it for sure. But I think even more so, than the getting older and being confident in who I am. It's like taking all the little baby steps that I've taken, it's been a progression to get me more comfortable, and the confidence that I've developed from establishing new habits, like my morning routine, just being able to trust myself to do what I said I was going to do for myself gave me this confidence to then, okay, let's do this podcast. Can I keep a podcast going? Can I do a weekly show and manage it and still have my photography business and still, take care of kids and all the things. It's like, oh, I can do that. So that is like a confidence builder, so every little thing that I've, it's just been like baby. Okay, well, let's try this little thing.
Right. Well, when you see success little by little, it builds on itself. So you're like, oh, I had success with that. Okay, let me try this. Okay, that's successful. Let me try this.
Yeah.
And I was yesterday, one of my business coaches made a comment on a group call about celebrating your wins, which has been something that I've been talking about a lot in the past, 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah. In fact, I was just listening to one of your podcast episodes and I was so relating to this conversation about how we hesitate to celebrate our wins.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So she
hard.
said, we have to celebrate our wins, because the more you celebrate your wins, the more you create things to celebrate. It's like the celebrations build. So if you celebrate, you're telling your brain, hey, I want more of this.
Yes. Okay. I get that. Yeah.
And
you're training your brain to keep looking for more of that because you're telling it it's important.
Right. And to do more things that will bring you success to celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that whole, so manifestation is one of those words that I feel like is so loaded, right?
Yes,
that
it is.
It's got this woo-woo kind of thing. And what I've come to realize is that manifestation is really just your brain looking for patterns, and whatever you're feeding it to tell it it's important, it keeps looking for that. So if you're telling it, if you're trying to resist something, if you're telling it, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want to be fat, let's just say, I don't want to be fat, I don't want to be fat, I don't want to be fat. You keep telling your brain this message of, right? And it keeps bringing you back to that pattern. I don't know. It's crazy the way it works, right?
Because your brain doesn't distinguish between not, I don't want to, or I do want to. All it hears is fat. So, it keeps you in that state. But so I teach visualization as well, like teach people how to use gratitude and meditation and visualization for increasing their success, for staying grounded and calm no matter what's going on around them, and for building on their success. We live in a society that tells us hard work is the only way to success, and that's not true. What are the other tools that we can use? And so we talk about using these tools. But the thing about, you said GPS, and that's why I brought this up, is because when you are visualizing and when you are feeling gratitude for what you want to manifest, and often I say, that's kind of a woo word, but let's also, the other way to say it is achieving your goals. Mm-hmm. You are working on manifesting or achieving your goals, and you're visualizing that which you are bringing into, your reality, and feeling gratitude for it as if it has already happened. Mm-hmm. You are magnetizing it to you. It brings it to you faster. And that's where people are like, okay, but wait, how does that work? It's not magic. It seems like magic. It's actually what you're doing is you're programming the GPS in your brain for that. And so when you're not in meditation or visualizing it, actively visualizing it, your brain is still working and looking for situations to make that real. That's how it works.
Right. It's looking for, oh God, I just lost the thread.
It's looking for, ways to make it happen.
It's looking for the evidence too, right?
Yes,
and the brain, right? It doesn't know the difference between, like, if you keep feeding it the visualizations or the the picture of what you want, it doesn't know, like it thinks it's already happened.
Right.
So
This is why athletes use this so much when they are visualizing and picturing their race over and over and over and over in their head and seeing the outcome, seeing themselves winning, seeing themselves crossing that finish line, seeing the time on the, I'm thinking of track athletes, but seeing the time on the board, and
yeah,
it works.
Yeah. So crazy. We've got this powerful thing on top of our shoulders.
Yeah. Right. And we need to learn how to better use it.
Yeah. I love that there's so many studies being done about it now and so much research being done into neuroplasticity and what the brain is actually capable of and what's actually going on in there. It's so cool. So cool.
Yeah,
I'm a nerd when it comes to
so am I. Like, I feel like if I came back in another life, or if I don't think I could redo it in my life now, because I'm not science wasn't my strong suit. But,
me neither. I love reading about science, but I'm terrible with the scientific method.
Right, exactly. But neuroplasticity and brain science to me is fascinating.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Wow, we need to talk again, Lori. Clearly,
let's set another time.
Yeah. What was I going to ask you? I was going to, what would be let's say somebody's life is fine. But they, it's like that little bit of discomfort of they know there's something more. They're not sure what it is. What would be your biggest suggestion for somebody to be able to push through that?
The first step is to figure out what are your values. What are your values? What's important to you? Because making decisions, if you're living out of balance or you're incongruent with what your values are, you're not living your true values, that's uncomfortable. But it might be only a little bit uncomfortable. It's fine. But when you get clear on what your values are, and then you can make decisions from that place of, that fits with my values or it doesn't fit with my values, it makes it a lot easier to make decisions and to stand in your conviction. Like what we were talking about earlier about when you are excited about your message, it's easy to step out and share it with the world. The same kind of thing when you are coming from a place of conviction of these are my values and this is what I stand for, it's easier to find the courage to do the thing. We know in our heart what the thing is that we need to do. We're scared to do it, but we know what it is. We pretend we don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's that I don't know is it's the thing that can hold you back the most, isn't it? I don't know. It is,
and every time I hear that phrase, I think of my friend Janine, who anytime I would say that to her, even to this day, she will say, but what if you did know?
Oh, that's good.
Shut up, I don't.
Shut up, Janine.
Exactly.
Shut up.
But what if you did? Now I have to dig deeper, damn it.
Damn you.
Right.
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to ask you your own question. What's your hype song?
I have two. One is Carrie Underwood's Champion.
Uh-huh.
I've gotten away from it. So asking me this question is great. I used to listen to it every morning after my meditation when I'm brushing my teeth, listening to that song because it gets me hyped for the day.
Uh-huh.
The other song I absolutely love, gets me hyped every time I hear it, is Van Halen's Right Now.
How's that one go? I'm terrible with song titles.
Yeah, I can't sing. But it's actually, Sammy Hagar was the lead singer when they were doing the song. But it's about right now, paying attention right now. What's happening right now? What's happening right now?
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm gonna check that one out. All right, Right Now, Van Halen. Wrote it down. That's it.
Okay. What would yours be?
Oh my goodness. That's a great. Okay, so like I said, I'm terrible with song titles, but I'm gonna pull up. I have a playlist on my phone called "Feeling Good,"
Oh.
and I play it whenever I need a little boost.
Mm-hmm.
And the first song on there, the first two songs I would say are my hype songs. "I'm Free" is the name of the first one. That's by Soup Dragons and Junior Reed. And it's like, I'm free to do what I want any old time. And I'm like, right, I have the choice. Like, it reminds me that there's always a choice. And then Uptown Funk.
Oh, I love that song too. I mean, there's so many good ones. Yeah. You can't sit still to that.
No.
You can't like listen to that and sit still.
I'm dancing in the kitchen in my robe with my coffee. And it's just like, Julio, get the stretch. Like...
Oh my gosh.
You all know way too much about me now. Oh my goodness. Totally embarrassed. Oh my gosh. So what's going on next for you that you're excited about that's coming up?
I'm excited about taking this whole concept of using gratitude and practicing meditation into companies. So working with managers of teams to help them share this information with their teams. Because as we said, entrepreneurship, no greater personal development journey, but people in companies a lot of times don't have the tools, don't know about the tools, and they're all walking around super anxious, waiting for, what's going to pop up in front of me next. And so being able to share with them how to use gratitude and how to practice meditation to stay calm and grounded no matter what's going on around them, that can change the world. Like, that sounds big and dramatic, but it truly can. If you can be calm and grounded in any situation, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to have better relationships. You're going to feel better. Why do you want to feel anxious all the time if you don't have to?
Yeah.
You can tell I'm very passionate about this.
Yes. That's awesome. Well, I mean, I wish they taught this in school.
Yes.
I just, would love to see it taught everywhere. And I think to take it into corporate is a great service. I mean, the world could only get better if everybody is tapping into that ability to be grateful and to get to that calm place and to make decisions from there instead of from the fear-based, ugh. Wow, very cool. I'm excited for you. That is so cool. So tell people the name of your program.
So my program is called Fuck Being Fine, I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to change it for corporate. I might. People have advised me that it's not going to fly in corporate, but we'll see. But it's also the name. I work with clients privately as well. So Fuck Being Fine is the name of the program.
It's great. And I love fine as a 4-letter word. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website is zenrabbit.com. And I'm really active on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn. And as you mentioned, I'm on Instagram as well.
All right. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad that we finally got the chance to sit down and talk.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Lori Saitz. Maybe you've tried meditating once or twice and thought, nope, this isn't for me. When I first started, I'd sometimes think I was doing it wrong because I couldn't stop my thoughts or quiet my mind, or I'd get bored or antsy or sleepy. And I want you to know 2 things. 1, you don't have to meditate for a really long time. You can get the benefits of it in just a few minutes a day, even if it's just a couple of minutes of deep breathing. And 2, there is no such thing as doing it wrong. If you just commit to sit and notice your breathing for a few minutes a day, I'm convinced you will start to see the benefits, and I hope you'll give it another try. Hey, check out the 10% Happier app or Headspace or something like that to get started with some awesome guided meditations. I mean, what do you have to lose? Anyway, that's my soapbox for now. If you want to know more about Lori, I'll have that information for you in the show notes. You can just go to latebloomerliving.com/podcast and click on the show notes for episode 94. And hey, remember to mark it on your calendar to spend some time with us May 11th to May 13th in the Midlife Uprising Summit. That's going to be going, well, just save those days. I'll get you more information. It's coming soon. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay safe and well. Talk soon.